All right, folks. All right, folks. Good morning, and welcome to the Saturday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN, our affiliate stations as well. And of course, don't forget that we're live streaming on the TuneIn app. Just punch in WCRN, and you can take us anywhere. As well as telling, hey, Alexa, play WCRN. She'll do that. No questions asked, as a matter of fact. And of course, we're live streaming on our Facebook page. So that's Joe Mangi Show. Matter of fact, Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, is the handle, I guess? Is the handle? Is that how we call it? The handle for all of our social media. Yes, that includes Parler, which is back up and running to a limited type of platform. They had to go out and stack their servers and things of that nature to get up and running. But I guess, and somebody, I'm sure you out there know, somebody out there knows much better than I do right now, how that works. I don't think it's on the Apple platforms or the iStore, any of that. So I think if you already had it, you're good, and you're going to go straight to their website to get the, the app download to your phone. So that's what's happening there. So check out our Facebook page, Joe Mangi Show. Good morning, Russ. I am well. Russ is behind the board, flying the controls today. A little snow on the way in. What's the dilly do on the weather for the weekend? Right. 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 Good there. All right, folks, let's do some housekeeping. Phone line to join the conversation, 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000. Lines are open and available, and we do have open lines. There are a few things I'm going to talk about here in the first hour. And then hour two, it being, well, actually, we usually do this on the third Saturday, but we just had a glitch there in the programming. Dr. Larry Fedawar will join us in hour two and take a look at the political landscape. And I think he's a good guy to talk to with the schools going back into session, the teachers' unions basically holding hostage here for all of us and going back into the classrooms and the ridiculous amount of money. You know, there's 121 billion with a B still sitting out there that hasn't been applied to open the schools. I just don't get how much plexiglass sanitizer is going to actually cost. I mean, at that kind of money, we'd be able to put those temporary classrooms up and have social distancing in the classroom. Some of these school districts here in Massachusetts have dropped it to 3 feet instead of the 6 feet, which is fine. But we'll talk with the good doctor about that and a couple other things going on. All right, so CPAC, folks. CPAC is running. Russ, do you ever follow that? Are you familiar with CPAC? Excuse me, folks. Happens every year. It's the conservative PAC that is down in, well, they do it at a different place every year, but they're in Florida this year, which, color me surprised. Florida, which is considered one of the few states that's open and has been open. The beaches are open, restaurants are open. So they're, and of course they have a friendly Republican governor in the state of Florida as well. So I've been watching a little bit of it. I don't know, how many of you are listening right now, are paying a lot of attention to CPAC, but hey, the theme that's going on there, and this is interesting, is that the America First agenda that Trump started is staying with us, is going to continue. It's not going anywhere. And everybody, of course, is very anxious to listen to Trump talk tomorrow. He's scheduled to talk on the last day of CPAC. I mean, yesterday, day one, official day of CPAC, everybody rolled in there Wednesday and Thursday. The media, the outlets were there beginning of the week, most of them doing their shows from Media Row. And that's, if you go down to CPAC, there's the media row, which is, you know, where everybody sets up. You can be TV, you can be radio stations. And a few years ago, they did something interesting. They recognized bloggers as official media, which was actually, folks, was kind of it was a major thing to happen when they officially started recognizing bloggers as a media outlet. So they've become an addition to Media Row at CPAC, as well as many other things, including the conventions as well. And that's just in times with what's going on. Just to kind of go off track here for a little bit, one of the things that we're seeing with Twitter, right? You know, Jack Dorsey out there saying, after they deplatformed President Trump, that this is only the beginning. They're going to continue to do this with conservatives, or any opinion they don't like. And as an end result of this, is what we're having left on Twitter, and even for the most part on Facebook, are very liberal, progressive, left outlooks, and people who are out there. So that's what you're seeing, because they are systematically knocking you off. Do I think my Twitter account will get shut off eventually? Sure, but the other side of it is, I'm not this huge Twitter person. We have a Twitter account, we post the show stuff, but I just don't know how people have the time to sit there all day on Twitter responding, you know, to every tweet, and they get into these arguments, and I don't know. I wish I had the time for that. I don't, and I don't know how these people who do that can do that. I just don't get that, man. So the thing on that is, I don't do a lot of I don't do a lot of tweeting. So maybe they won't focus in, but if they look at it's a show that leads conservative, maybe they'll do that. Now Facebook, on the other hand, has shadow banned me and limited things from time to time on a regular basis, especially any time I've shared anything or posted anything about COVID. Absolutely, like that's an automatic, because in this Orwellian big tech world of ours, what they decide is truth is truth. Because this whole fact-checking thing, folks, it is a scam. Because, all right, we're going to create fact-checkers, but who are these people? They're people that were just, the day before, they were either editors or producers on, at very left publications or left TV platforms or what have you, and they become fact-checkers, which means you have the fox watching the henhouse. You've got liberal, like-minded people being the fact-checkers, so the fact-checkers are always going to come out with the same conclusion that the liberal poster put out there, and always going to come out against that conservative post, because that's where they're coming from. It's really, it's laughable if it wasn't sad about it. 508-871-7000. Russ, we have a call? All right, good morning, Mark. You look marvelous.
You look marvelous. I'm following the news like everybody else. 1 month. And what I'm seeing on the news is $3 a gallon gas.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Fauci, looking like a clown, making contradictory statements on that. I watched yesterday German state TV, EWTV, having reporters on the ground of the resurgence of prices in local area, probably known as, remember, the lower earth. Okay, what else do we have? We have U.S. gas prices, very gas prices.
Mm-hmm. I got it, Mark. Very good. Yeah.
Have a good one. Have a
Thank
good
you.
one, brother.
Thank you. Yeah, airstrikes in Syria. The question comes there is, and you know, guys, we have a little fun and we poke at President Biden's cognitive ability. Um, sure, when he's out there and he's reading little index cards and he carries a slip of paper. I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but on many occasions, he's struggled to stay on track with what he was thinking about, what he's talking about. Forget the numbers, right? They're constantly messed up. 500 million, 5 billion, 500,000. You have to wonder, how much did he have to do with these strikes in Syria? Now, there's some split on this, and every time this happens, the question always comes up about the authority of the President of the United States. Can he or can't he do this? Now, we have real problems with this because if the President briefs Congress, I mean, has more leaks than a screen door in a submarine. If he briefs them, it's getting out there, and if it gets out there, it will get out there to the enemies. It'll get out there to the targets. If it's debated on the floor of Congress, yeah, element of surprise is gone, guys. So presidents have, and it's right in, you know, Section 2 of the Constitution, the president has the obligation, as well as the authority, to protect the country how they see fit. So presidents have always done this military action, and there's some moaning about it, but they've never do anything about it. What's concerning here, what's interesting, is we have not Republicans pulling this, but Democrats who are concerned about the launch codes in Joe Biden's hands. And this isn't a joke. It's not funny. I'm not making this up. We have Democrats who are saying that this needs to be a two-person thing. We're nervous about Joe Biden having the launch codes. They didn't even go that far with Donald Trump. I mean, they made comments about it and so forth, but there was no move to this effort to say we should really make this a two-person call for any nuclear options. And that's interesting. In the meantime, we have the White House quietly letting us know that Kamala Harris is being encouraged to develop her own relations with leaders of foreign countries, and that she's taking a lot of these meetings and phone calls. So the question is, okay, why? What are you prepping for? Or do you think Joe's not up to having a phone call of that significance by himself? Is he not up to the job? And I think we all pretty much knew that not only was Joe Biden going to be a one-term president, but the length of the term is what has been up for debate. Not whether it will be a one or two-term president, but just the length of the first term. How long before he, in his words, develops some illness and steps down? Now, again, that was probably, if you remember this, a few months ago when he was answering a question, and he often does this, right, folks? He wanders in and out of the Obama, that he was as vice president under Obama and today. Sometimes you get the distinct impression he's not quite sure if it's 2014 or 2021. I mean, he's even said, you know, I'm Joe Biden, I'm running for the Senate during the presidential campaign. But we know all this. You've seen this. And if you haven't seen it, I'm telling you about it now. And he had answered this question, and he said, and it was opposed, it came up about, yeah, when he was vice president, but now with Kamala Harris, how would you handle a major difference in policy, in opinion, with your vice president? And he told the story, and he said, I would develop a little illness or something and step down. Now that's when I think he was slipping back into him being VP, Obama being VP, but he was answering in the context of between him and his vice president, Kamala Harris, and he said he would develop an illness and step down. Of course, everybody kind of jumped on that. Shouldn't she be the one that develops a quote-unquote illness and steps down? So I guess the question is, and the odd makers in Vegas should be asking the length of term one. That's going to be the big question, folks, right? What is going to be the opt-out date for Joe Biden in the first term of his presidency? But let me get back to CPAC. CPAC goes on for today, goes on for tomorrow. And the message that's recurring over there, and if you're watching in this, right, it's that they have to regroup and advance their principles. But the principles of the Trump Republican, of the America First policy, the America First platform. And then a lot of them are warning us not to go back to the old Republican platform and principles because they're not going to work. And what Trump has done is he really has changed the outlook on the Republican Party, and this has a lot to do with why he did so much better with Latinos and blacks and even Asians than previous Republicans have done, because he's really made the America First and the Republican Party about the working class man and woman, about the blue collar. The fastest growing jobs and wage increases were taking place actually with those without high school diplomas for the first time ever. And this was truly a blue collar boom in the 4 years of the Trump presidency. So they're saying that we have to regroup as a party, stick to the America First principles and platform, and move forward on that. Because the liberal policies don't work. And we see Joe Biden doing these executive orders and undoing Donald Trump's executive orders and policies, and for the only reason that we can see or think that we can think of or come up with is just because they're Donald Trump. Because, and I've said this before, folks, and I'm asking it again, when he sits there with this stack of executive orders and the little card, and he reads about what this is that he's signing, don't you want to ask who wrote the card? Who wrote the executive order? Does Joe really understand everything he's doing? Does he just get the kind of the gloss over of this is what this is? It's a good thing, Mr. President, just sign it. And he sits there signing them like they're yearbooks. So there's no explanation or reasoning, much less justification. So why canceling the Keystone Pipeline? The excuse or the reason is because we need green energy. Doesn't cut it. Doesn't make any sense. First of all, if you're going to try to create all these green jobs, which has never successfully done, right? You look at solar and everything else, right? They just don't exist. They don't happen. Let those jobs cultivate, percolate, develop, and become an actual industry before people like John Kerry sits there and cavalierly, as he's choosing between traveling on his $7 million yacht or his private airplane, or now his private airplane that is actually taxpayer-funded jets. Just get another job in solar. Just get another job. For the guy who's never really had a job, that's a pretty bold statement. But there's no explanation as to why this makes sense. Then we look at an anomaly. This isn't climate change, right? The vortex in the north, it came down further south than it should, and that happens every once in a while, and there's deep dive in temperatures down in Texas and surrounding areas, and they actually have snow, and it puts them into chaos, absolutely. And the first thing that failed were the turbines. They froze because nobody invested in the very expensive technology and add-on feature of de-icing and the free defreezing of these turbines, because we're in Texas. Now, hindsight's 20/20, but you can't get that crazy about this, folks. Because if you're the guy doing this and say, okay, it's another, you know, a couple $100,000 per turbine, we do this de-icing, and you're sitting there in 108 degrees in the shade, and when do you think you'd say, yeah, you know, I don't think we need that? You know, do a lot of people in Alaska worry about whether or not the car comes with air conditioning? I mean, I know it's standard, but you get my point. So they can't hold that much responsible. But Texas is thrown into this weird situation that they're not used to, on top of the fact that Texas is a state that has a unique power grid, right? For one thing, the power grid is not on the national power grid. It's not like they can easily borrow power from the next grid, right? The epoch thing they call it down there, right? It's like a authority type thing that does the power grid down there. And yeah, they've been trying to integrate green energy, solar energy, wind energy into the power grid. And my stand on this is very simple. Look, the fossil fuels can't go away overnight. They just can't happen. You can't throw us into the Stone Age, and you can't let what happened in Texas happen nationwide in various other tragedies that would happen by the elimination or the extreme reduction of fossil fuels. But working those green power into the power system as a whole is a good thing, because say you get 4% of your energy from wind power. Look at it as a positive. That's 4% that's not being gotten by by fossil fuel. It's a win, but you cannot eliminate fossil fuel. You know, the planet keeps making it. Natural gas, we have abundancy of it. We have oil continues to percolate. You know how much oil is coming up out of the ocean floor every day? I know everybody went crazy on the horizons in the Gulf, but I got to tell you, there are millions of gallons of oil just coming through the ocean floor on a regular basis. 508-871-7000. Russ, we've got another phone call. It's
We got 2 calls.
okay.
Richard from New Hampshire.
Okay. All right. Good morning, Richard. How are you, sir?
Good morning, Joe. How are you doing?
I'm well.
Okay. Quick point. Last night I talked to my brother. He lives in California. And him and his wife, they went down to the villages. You know what the villages are?
Yeah, big complex in Florida, right? I don't know how many hundreds of acres. Yeah. It's almost like this little state in the state. Yeah.
That's right. Exactly. He said he was down there. Guess what they're doing down there, Joe?
I have no idea.
They're out there dancing and they're having karaoke outside. And he said the restaurants are all full. He said the bars are all full and nobody has a mask. Only a few people inside though with masks. Everybody down there, not a single one has a mask.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you? And what does that tell Baker or Bay the Finger? Right? It's all a bunch of BS.
Yeah.
By wearing a mask. And I said it before, and I'll say it again.
Mhm.
You cannot give somebody else a virus. If I'm talking to you and I cough in your face, I'm not giving you a virus. What I'm doing is I'm giving you germs. People don't understand that. All these people that have gone to college, come on, you've got to be freaking kidding me.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
It's unbelievable.
Well, look, I mean, and that's always been the thing. A lot of these states, and they happen to be red states and red, you know, GOP governors, who have taken it easy on these Orwellian lockdowns and these, you know, the state control, and they're doing well. When you look at the numbers, right, it hasn't been crazy. They haven't spiked these ridiculous amounts, and that has got to contribute a little bit to the herd vaccination and you know the moving through the people. And you know, here we have Massachusetts, right? We're about to Monday the 1st. We're back to the governor, right? Governor Parker, if you're talking to Joe Biden, Governor Baker. For the rest of us, is releasing or lightening up on the restrictions, and this is making them very happy. Friends of mine went to the North End the other night, you know, and they're just giddy over there because the restriction, the capacity restriction will be lifted, folks. But you're still going to have, I think it's 6 to a table, and in 90 minutes you can stay there, but it's still going to happen. And I got to tell you, I don't know if you were watching any of the CPAC there, Richard, but there was a lot of attempt at humor there. I mean, Ted Cruz was pretty funny. I mean, he laughed at himself a little bit with saying, hey, Florida's beautiful, not as nice as Cancun. He had a few funny things to say, but, and I think he even got onto this thing about, hey, the virus, he says, I think the virus has, there must be hormones released from your thighs when you're sick. Because you're allowed to take your mask off when you're sitting in a restaurant, but when you stand up, you got to throw that mask on. So I don't know if it's the virus doesn't work under 4 feet or whatever it is. It was kind of funny because what he was doing. Right. This is now because this is Joe Biden, right? This is doing this. But the thing is, guys, we can go and do a montage of Fauci telling us at one time wearing a mask does nothing, don't wear it, and then later he says, I lied to you because I didn't want you to go out and buy all the masks. So we know that his credibility of delivering the news based on science and science alone is out the window. I'm sorry. Doctor, you lost it when you go out there and you tell hundreds of millions of people with a straight face, don't wear a mask. It's not going to do you any good because of other reasons other than the scientific reasons behind it. That's a mistake. I'm sorry. You've lied and you've lost your credibility, and I really am not going to take anything you say going forward that you're telling me as a doctor, and because that's what the science says. You demonstrated your lie. It is about the money.
Executive order, right? I've said it before, I'll say it again. The president and governors, they do not have any authority to make an executive order, Joe. They think an executive order is only for Washington, D.C., and if a governor makes an executive order, it has no force and effect. The legislators, they're the ones that make the laws, not the president. You got to remember that. The governor doesn't make laws. The legislature, if they make a law, he has the right to veto it or accept it.
You're right, Richard. Richard, 100%, but against the clock for a break here. Thank you for the call. Whoever's on the phone, you're going to have to wait for the break. Sorry about that. We're going to take a break here. I think we're going to meet with Joe, maybe find a friend at home for one of Teddy's friends. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Lines open and available. Stick with us. We'll be back in a few moments. I'm Joe Mangiacotti.
Why we help scientists move their product.
What is going on with this?
at lpdm.org and tune into AM 830 WCRN Sunday mornings at 7:30 for case files from the LPDM or anytime at lpdmcasefiles.com.
We know why you're awake. Your child is about to get their driver's license. Levante's Auto School offers 1-week driving programs to help make sure your child stays safe and focused behind the wheel.
877 Drive Ed. Who's Ed?
That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
Learn to drive safely and efficiently. Visit one of our 5 locations throughout Massachusetts. Click Levante'sAutoschool.com.
Levante's Auto School shows you how to learn the rules and keep your cool. 877 Drive Ed.
Who's Ed? That's the number for Levante's Auto School.
Bam! Bam! On that 15.
I'll
Out with Joe. You're listening to Out with Joe. Out with Joe.
Slap some bacon on a biscuit, let's go!
Oh, this is the worst looking hat I ever saw. Well, you buy a hat like this, I'll bet you get a free bowl of soup, huh?
Welcome to this edition of Out with Joe, brought to you by Nothing But Cakes in White City Plaza, Shrewsbury. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. This week we thought we'd take a look at how much to tip your delivery driver during coronavirus. Extreme situations call for extreme tipping. It's the right thing to do. Tipping is an unavoidable part of U.S. culture at any time. But as we rely more on food, grocery, and restaurant delivery during the coronavirus outbreak, the amount you should be tipping is climbing. Delivery drivers put themselves at greater risk of exposure to the COVID-19 disease that so far resulted in over 362,000 confirmed cases in the U.S. alone, so that you don't have to go outdoors. They're also often collecting minimum wage without hazard pay. The suggested amount is to tip at least 20% on all takeout and delivery orders, or more to show appreciation at a time when the unemployment rate has spiked to reach an all-time high in the U.S. So how much to tip at restaurants and bars in general? Well, let's look at that first. The good news is that you're not expected to tip the same amount at a five-star restaurant as you would when ordering at the counter. But tips are acceptable, appreciated, and even expected for a person who serves you and cleans up when you're done. The same goes for delivery and carryout. So in general, coffee shop baristas, $1 or so per drink, more for complicated orders like half-calf, no-fat soy latte with light foam and extra shot, whatever that means, or less for simple orders, hot water in a tea bag. Bartenders, $1 to $2 per drink, more for mixed drinks, less for drafts, or 20% if you're running a tab. Dine-in restaurant service, about 20%, or more for outstanding service. Buffet service, 10 to 15%, depending on how many plates, forks, and refills you go through. Fast casual counter service, up to $1 for taking your order, $2 to $5 if they bus your table or deliver your food. Restaurant carryout service, 10% more for large, complicated orders, such as baby shower or office party. Food delivery drivers, 10% or up to 20% or more during hazardous road conditions or special circumstances, such as holidays or big game night. But the last two, restaurant carryout service and food delivery drivers, it is during the COVID-19 pandemic, and they are not getting hazardous pay. And don't forget that the minimum wage for these type of employees are far less than the standard minimum wage in any given state. Other things to keep in mind when tipping: cash is preferable to credit, but giving a credit card tip is better than going short on cash. It's rude to leave intentionally small tip, like a handful of change after a $50 meal. If you have exceptionally poor service, talk to the manager. Leaving no tip might be appropriate in extreme cases. The likelihood that a server will spit into your food is relatively low, so we don't recommend tipping solely to avoid that type of behavior. Rather, tip to acknowledge the work or service that has been done. For more on dining, entertainment, and news, click outwithjoe.com and follow us on social media at OutWithJoe. Out with Joe has been brought to you by Nothing But Cakes in White City Plaza in Shrewsbury, on Facebook at Nothing But Cakes Shrewsbury. Have you heard of the hottest new bakery around? I know you heard about it right here. My friend Al has opened Nothing But Cake in the White City Plaza in Shrewsbury. Nothing But Cake is a bakery chain and is locally owned and operated by my friend Al. They have bundt cakes ranging from bite-sized to tiered, plus platters, candles, and cards. For any occasion, function, or just to have around the house or office, stop by and check them out. Everything is baked from scratch and on site. Nothing beats a sweet surprise. And until you try one of Al's bundt cakes, you haven't tried a real bundt cake. Stop by and ask for Al. Tell him Joe told you to stop by. 98 Boston Turnpike, White City Plaza near Planet Fitness, Shrewsbury, and on Facebook as well, Nothing But Cake Shrewsbury.
To join the conversation, call 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Now, here's your host, Joe Mangiacotti.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the first hour of the Saturday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830, WCRN, our affiliate stations, as well as live streaming on the TuneIn app. Punch in WCRN. Take us anywhere on any of your devices. It's pretty cool. Also, you can tell Alexa, play WCRN, and she will do that. No questions asked. We're live streaming on our Facebook page, Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show. There's a camera in the studio, but what the point is the audio is streaming there. And you were just hearing the studio up until a few minutes ago. We fixed that problem. If you were streaming there, you didn't hear the caller. You will now hear everything as it's going out over the air. You'll even hear Russ talking to my ear if he does, so that's pretty cool. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Dr. Larry Fedorov joins us in the second hour at 7 o'clock from down in Virginia, from his horse farm down there. We'll talk to the good doctor. And for now, though, let me go to the phones because Scott has been waiting patiently from Florida. And good morning, Scott. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. What part of Florida did you go to?
Miami.
Miami. Okay.
Miami.
I asked you that before, and I forgot what it was. But
No,
so you're down there, and
no.
I mean, what's the temperature? It's got to be.
The temperature, give me 1 second. I'll just go on my second.
You're in the 60s, maybe even 70
Just
ish.
give me 1 second.
You know, no big deal.
It's in the 60s. I'll tell you, when I shower every day, I'll go with the same uniform, Mr. Mangiacotti. I'm wearing socks, shorts, shirt, and sandals.
Yeah.
Because I paid my dues with people wear long pants on hot days. It's just crazy here.
Yeah.
Why would you when you can wear
Well,
shorts and
you know, one of the things, Scott, that and I think it came up on Political Thursday with Jerry Doherty in our conversation, and I went back and double checked it. 50% of the people exiting Massachusetts are actually going to Florida. That means 1 out of 2 people who move out of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts are settling in Florida. You're an example. I have a couple friend of mine. They relocated. They sold their townhouse in Worcester, and they're relocated, and they bought a ranch with a nice little lot, and they got the pool in the lanai type of thing. But there are a lot of people, and Richard would just brought up the villages. I mean, this is, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of acres this thing is, but I guess they keep, it has multiple pools, game rooms, and courts, outside courts of different things, and people drive around on golf carts, right? They have cars. I recently bought a car, not my regular, like I like to collect the old cars, Scott, antiques or specialty cars. So a guy I just bought a very interesting 73 Cadillac Eldorado convertible. This is a car I've wanted for a long time, Scott. And it was a Florida car, and he brought it up. And so I was with him yesterday as we're getting the car ready to be transported to my place. And he has a place in Florida, and he has these golf carts that are done up. One looks like a Hummer, like it has the nose of a Hummer, and then the other one he has looks like a little Rolls Royce. So this is the thing they do down there, right? They have golf carts. His is electric. It has 4 huge, like, yacht batteries in it, and he can charge it up. He gets 300 miles on one full charge on his golf cart. If you're driving around the neighborhood, that's a lot. But he says people
how much
drive.
do those cost?
I guess golf carts can go anywhere from like 3,000 up to 8,000-9,000, and then I don't know what they cost if you start getting them. Kind of I call it goofing on them. I mean, when you make it look like a tiny Rolls Royce or something, if you have the money and the sense of humor, that's fine.
They're fun to drive.
They're fun to drive. They're easy to drive.
Yeah, they are.
So golf carts are a big way of transportation down there. It's as my friend put it. He said, by the time you find parking spaces with cars, people just drive the golf cart from home, each other's homes. You can go down to the convenience store. Of course, you can take it to the country club as well. But anyway, good for you.
You can't drive it on I-95.
No, I don't think so. I don't even think. I'm not even sure they're like registered and stuff. Or I have no idea if you have to carry an insurance. Like we have mopeds, right? I mean, when the mopeds first kind of got to be a big thing here, that was my first vehicle, technically, if you want to say it. I bought a Gorelli when I was a teenager, and I got a job at a restaurant at like 14. And you didn't have to have anything. As long as it was under 50 cc and it had a pedal on it, you could just, it was like, I think they changed the law on that. Somebody out there probably knows what it is now, but I'm talking, this is 40 some odd years ago. I just bought a Gorelli, and that's what I used to putt to the restaurant. And believe it or not, that's how I got home at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning when the restaurant closed when I was 14, 15 years old, driving down Route 135 in Wellesley and Natick with, a a headlight that did not really do much. So it was, you look back at the stuff he did when you were a kid and you say, that was pretty dangerous. What an idiot I was. But hey,
you mentioned Wellesley, and it just brought a memory back to me. God bless my mom. She passed away a lot of times on Saturday when I take her shopping. Rituals. She loved Captain Martin's, and they had wonderful seafood.
Yeah, we used
and I'm
to.
sure you've eaten there.
Yeah. Well, if people are from that area and you remember Captain Martin's, we got our seafood from them at the restaurant. It was called the Berkeley Restaurant. It was Berkeley Restaurant in Wellesley Hills. I went to work there as a dishwasher a couple times, and the owner took a liking to me. He thought I was a bright kid, and he called me up one day after school. He said, "How would you like to be a cook? I'd like to, make you the weekend cook." So I was 15, 16 years old, and I had this great job, making 2.5 times what the minimum wage was, and what my counterparts, one of my the buddy who got me the job, Scott, in the restaurant, was because when you become the cook, now I'm technically in charge of the dishwashers for cleanup and stuff. He quit. It was one of those things. He got me the job. He got my foot in the door. And I got promoted above him, and now I'm his boss, and he's like, I'm out of here. My other buddies who were in there before me, they stayed. But one kid, he was bent out of shape for it. But I spent my entire, junior high and high school career working in this restaurant, the weekend cook, and doing.
So you basically learned all the different aspects of the restaurant business.
Who, me? No, the owner.
Yeah.
What I found out from this guy, and the guy who owned it, anybody, if you're in Wellesley, Natick area, and you remember the Berkeley restaurant, folks, the owner was a guy named Dwight Quimby, and he went by Whitey. That was his name, his nickname. And he taught me the difference between a chef and a cook is who cleans the kitchen. that was the clear distinction. So, he'd go back in the office to get his paperwork done or what have you, the receipts for the night, and my job was to break the kitchen down, clean it up, and actually oversee what he used to call the dishwashers there. We were swills. That was his nickname, the swills. And, you clean and scrub all the pots in the kitchen, and that was the breakdown. But that was my job, is to oversee the two dishwashers, to make sure it was done right. And like I said, the kid that got me the job, he's like, what the hell is this about? And he quit. But that's where I worked through high school. I mean, that's how I bought my first car, and that's how I went on vacation and bought my clothes. Once I got a job, see, this is the thing, right, Scott? Up until then, you'd get your back to school clothes and you get Christmas gifts, and if you wanted to go on a school trip or go away, you had to go to mom and dad to get the money. Once I started working, that was it. I got a birthday present. I got a Christmas gift. That's it. I bought my car. I insured my car. I bought my own clothes. If I wanted to go away, it was up to me. Now, the other side of it is, and this is interesting, and I wonder how other people were brought up this way. My parents never, ever asked me about the money. Not only did they never asked me how much I made, they never took a check or looked at a check. But they didn't pay for anything either. But now I had friends growing up, and they had to turn their paycheck over to their parents. So they got the job, whether it was a paper route or a swill, dishwasher, whatever their job was, McDonald's, a lot of us, our first jobs were McDonald's or what have you. They would turn their paychecks over, and they would get an allowance out of the paycheck. Now, some of my friends came from families with 8, 9 kids, so everybody pitched in, but not necessarily. And I grew up in Natick, and there were some wealthy families, friends of mine were wealthy, but I never did that. So I wonder, you growing up, what was it, Russ? Did you have to turn your check over to mom when you got your first job? What was your deal?
I did pay like room and board for the week because technically I was.
Well, you were still in school?
No, this was.
All right.
When I was in school, I didn't work because my parents were divorced and my.
So you didn't have that. You got an allowance or
I
paid
got an allowance.
Whatever you needed.
My father was responsible for my bills until I was legal age, and I didn't start paying, my own bills until I was like 22 years old when I got my first full-time job in retail.
Not a bad deal. Yeah, so it's different. So nowadays, I don't think that the kids are having the same thing, right? And nobody. I don't know. I just don't see teenagers getting jobs and being self-sufficient, I think, like my generation was for the most part.
There's
it's
no
just
jobs.
An observation. Yeah, well, that's true. There's no jobs. And you know what's going to happen? If this $15 away, and I don't know what happened. Now, late last night, and, you know, I have to go to sleep at a reasonable hour, folks. I get up at, 3:30, but the parliamentarian for Congress said that you can't put the $15 minimum wage in this. It doesn't belong. It doesn't fit the rules of what we're doing. And Nancy Pelosi put it in anyway. So there was going to be a vote, and I don't know. We'll check it. I'll check it when I get off the air whether it passed or not. But I got to tell you something. Just on the common sense level of this, folks, right? $15 is a very different purchase power in Boston, Massachusetts than it is in Springfield, Illinois, or Springfield, Nebraska. There's a Springfield in every state, so that's why I'm just saying you get my point. Is the income, the money that you need to live a certain lifestyle is different, not just in different states, but even within the state, it's a different thing. So to try to say $15 across the board for the entire country, first of all, on its face value is idiotic. And it should really be a state issue. Each state should determine what's the best minimum wage is for the state. And it just seems that the federal government, and this is just an indication of the federal government taking more and more control over our lives and deciding what should be local issues and left up to the state. And the minimum, and let's put the $15, let's put a pin in the amount for a moment. The concept of a national minimum wage doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. It should be up to the states to figure this out. Then we can get into the question about it, because you say $15 an hour. Well, I don't care who you talk to, any business and who isn't already paying that. And they're going to tell you, well, the result's going to be less hours for people, or no more hiring, or God forbid, we actually let people go. And we will automate more and more because you're telling me how to run the business. Now, I don't think, I know you can go Google, folks, and go look up somewhere where FDR or something quoted decades ago that he envisions a minimum wage where, you can live off of that. But in the real world of today, that minimum wage is supposed to be that starting point and getting yourself in, foot in the door. And the best minimum wage that we can have is a solid, robust economy. Because what was happening under the 4 years of the economic growth and prosperity that we had under the Trump administration, we had wage growth. The income, the average income for households skyrocketed and went up. And unemployment rates were the lowest they were in decades. And for some of the categories since records were kept, like Black, Latinos, Asians, women, and that will drive wages up because you need to pay it. So this whole concept of the $15 or any national minimum wage is ludicrous on its face because it doesn't work. Let's take you, and Scott, you're still there, right?
Yeah, I'm here.
So you still take down in Florida. There's parts in Florida where, $15 an hour, and let's do a whole work week, right? So, that's $600 a week, $2,400 a month. Well, in Florida, you could live on that in parts of Florida, right? You can.
Not
you
in
can,
Miami.
Miami. But this is what I'm saying. It has to depend where you are, because you go to Miami, and that's a big demand, right? You got a lot of tourism, and you got a lot of desire to live there. So what happens to the property values? They go up. But there are parts there are places in Florida where I know friends of mine who bought very nice homes in the $150,000 to $180,000 range, who have $600-700 a month apartments that would be $1,900 or $2,300 here So it really depends on the state, and even within the state. And it's going to hurt businesses, and we're seeing more and more automation. And when we start doing this to businesses, the federal government should be out of our way. Now, going back to CPAC, that was another message. Now, you're down in Florida. Are you watching any of the CPAC coverage at all, Scott?
I'll watch it because of Trump. That's the only reason why.
Yeah, now he's going to speak tomorrow, right? He's wrapping up this whole thing.
Yes.
So what
That's
are we looking to hear
probably
from
why I
Trump tomorrow? We want to hear him kind of solidify the America First policies, that is what the Republican Party should be. It shouldn't go back to the old ways. It should continue to stick with its America First platform. We also are going to be looking for Trump to indicate 2024. What are his plans, right? Isn't that what everybody's waiting for? Because we got a litany of possible GOP candidates that, we'll face it, if Trump throws the hat in for 2024, who no one else is, Scott, right? Nobody is.
No,
even Mitt Romney admitted the other day that if Trump runs in 2024, he has it sewed up. And Mitch McConnell said, yes, if he's the nominee, I will support him. So nobody's going to try to primary Donald Trump. So that's why everybody's waiting for him to hopefully tomorrow give some kind of indication, some kind of message as to what his intention is. Maybe he will announce. If you had to take a bet right now and lay on the odds, Scott, would you say that he's going to make his plans for 2024 known one way or the other tomorrow?
Knowing Trump's ego and how angry, furious he is, and he has a right to be, the people that have hurt him, he's absolutely going to run in 2024, just to spite them. And you know, it'll be a wonderful running mate for him. Wonderful, Ron DeSantis of Florida. And in fact, if Trump bowed out and didn't want the nomination, then I'm telling you, Ron DeSantis would be the perfect, appropriate man to take the baton.
I think that would be a good question to put out there for this morning to you guys, folks. Is if other than Trump, who would be the top 1 to 3 candidates? I think Ron DeSantis is right up there. I think even Nikki Haley would be somebody out there. Rand Paul. These are just some of the names off the top of my head of people who would. You might even see Senator Cruz make another crack at it. So, look, there are some real viable candidates out there if Trump doesn't run. But it's interesting that you say that. I agree that he might run just out of spite. But here's the thing, folks. And I'm telling you this. If Donald Trump was to say, I'm running in 2024, you're going to see a resurgence of the virus and lockdowns continue, or you're going to see something else. They're going to want to ensure that we continue this mass mail-in voting, these extension, like everything that took place, all the shenanigans in 2020, they're going to want in 2024 because it gives what? It gives coverage, it gives confusion. So what the GOP has to do and what you and I have to do is push the legislators to make sure, and the court has got to come out and say, no, the Secretary of State or the governor solely cannot change the federal voting regulations, like the deadlines. And we can't have voting months. It's a voting day. And we've got to have automatic investigations when more ballots are cast than registered voters in a district. Come on, as Joe would say, come on, man. How can that happen? Obviously, that needs to be looked into. And I'm not talking about 20, I'm going to get the texts and the messages and conspiracy. I'm telling you, going forward, folks, look, 2020 is a done deal. The guy's been sworn in. How do you unravel that? You can't unravel it. I know shenanigans took place. And if there was actually a court case that was ever held, and you even go look at Clarence Thomas's dissension on those cases, he said it. It's our obligation that we should be looking into this, that you had Secretary of States moving dates and changing election law. That's not within their purview. It's not within their authority to do that. So going forward, in the 2024 election, there's got to be a couple things in place. Set dates. This is it. Look, if you can't get it together, if you can't figure out the voting date and either send in your traditional absentee ballot through that process or get there on that day and vote, then you don't vote. And ID has to be asked. This concept of it being a racist, one of the speakers at CPAC, Scott, he came out, who was it? DeRoy, I think his name was, DeRoy, and he said it perfectly. He's a black, I think, state level legislator. I'll look it up on the break because he was very good. And as a black man, he said that, this whole voter thing, they're telling us that blacks are either too lazy or too stupid to figure out how to get a picture ID. He said, I had to show an ID to get on the airplane to come here. I have to show an ID to buy an adult beverage. I have to show an ID in all of these different places. He says, as a black man, it's very insulting to me to tell me that I can't have the wherewithal to figure out how to get a picture ID. And he makes a hell of a point on that. And this is such a valuable thing that we have in our lives, Scott, is our vote. And to have no integrity around it, I mean,
they've destroyed it on us. They have destroyed it on us. They've taken away our trust, and for that reason, millions of people are not going to vote in the future. They're going to figure, what the hell? Why should I?
And that's the problem.
Going to go. Yeah. Well, they did it. They were the one that did it. The Democrats. And let's finish up by saying Joe Biden. I never consider him as president. He's not even going to finish up his term. He's going to end up. He'll die in office, or he'll end up in a nursing home. He doesn't even have. If you listen to him, he can't put one sentence together. He cannot put one sentence together without mumbling. He's just a joke, and that's why Trump has to run in 2024.
Yeah. All right. Very good, Scott. Thank you for the call. We're coming up against the break here. Thank you. Always good. And it's, I assume he's listening through the TuneIn app, which, folks, is very easy to do. Matter of fact, I listen to a lot of the local stations through my, you get in the car and the thing syncs up and it goes through your speakers in the car. It's very cool. Just punch in WCRN on TuneIn. And what I like is when I get out of the car, it just goes to the phone and sticks with you. You don't miss anything. 508-871-7000. That's how you join the conversation. We will take a break. We'll come back on the other side. Dr. Larry Fedewa will join us as we decide that, we're going to fix all of the problems of the world in the next hour. Sounds like a good deal to me. All right, folks, 508-871-7000. And don't forget our text line, 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. We'll be back in a few. I'm Joe Mangiacotti.
WACE Chicopee and WCRN Worcester.
7 o'clock.
Hey folks, Joe Mangiacotti from the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Reminding you, talk radio is the immune system to the partisan, bias, political rhetoric attacking us on a daily basis. Get inoculated. The Joe Mangiacotti Show is your vaccine. Join me weekend mornings, 6 to 8.
Golden Group Roofing is a community brand. From our Master League roofers and industry partners to our clients, every single person represents the Golden Group standard. We strive every day to make your home's needs a priority because Golden Group invests in you and your communities. With unbeatable craftsmanship, customer satisfaction, reasonable pricing, Golden Group Roofing stands above the rest. Having been awarded GAF Master League Contractor, Certainty Select Shingle Master, and GAF Energy Certified Solar, Golden Group Roofing is 100% worthy of your investment. Experience the Golden Group difference, where hands protect what matters most. Visit us at goldengrouproofing.com or call us at 508-873-1884. 508-873-1884.
I want
want to tell you what Cantiani Insurance has been able to do for me and Teddy. We stopped in to see Paul Sr. and the great staff at 318 Plantation Street. They've been handling my car and business insurance for years. Teddy was making his way around the office, and they let me know. They now offer pet insurance. For a fraction of what one visit to the vet was for Teddy, they could cover him for a whole year. I know you treat your furry family members like any other family member, and as well as I do Teddy. The professional staff at Cantiani's has been providing courteous service for over 40 years, with integrity and personalized service, making sure that your insurance actually protects you and your family. With 2 locations, the 318 Plantation Street in Worcester and East Douglas Insurance Agency, located at 306 Main Street in Douglas. For home, auto, business insurance, and now pet insurance, click CantianiAgency.com or call 508-791-2088. 508-791-2088.
So are you tired of being tired? Well, then it's time to get the tea. Hey, it's Lisa here to tell you about this all-natural, all-organic tea I've been drinking that has had great results for over 20 years. It's called Life Change Tea, and it's specially formulated to help detoxify and cleanse your kidneys, liver, colon, and blood all at once. The colon is one of the most ignored organs in the human body. The faster that waste is eliminated from the body, the less time that waste sits in our intestines, spreading toxins to our bloodstream. This tea helps cleanse chemicals caused by outside intruders from our entire digestive system, and get this, weight loss can be a side effect. And with continued use of the tea, you can experience clearer, healthier, younger-looking skin, increased energy, and a happier outlook on life. So if you're tired of being tired, get the Life Change Tea at getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com, and like me, you'll be glad you did.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second hour, the Saturday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN, as well as our affiliates. Live streaming on the TuneIn app. Just punch in WCRN, take us anywhere. And don't forget, you can tell Alexa, hey, play WCRN, and she'll do that, no questions asked. Also, we're live streaming on my Facebook page, Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show. And that's the handle for everything, Twitter and Instagram, and yes, even Parler and Rumble, because we conservatives have to find new platforms, because one of the results that we're seeing happen now is the only people on, say, Twitter are the left and progressives, are the only voices on there. Jack Dorsey is systematically deplatforming any opinion or point of view he doesn't agree with. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Don't forget our text line at 617-297-8388. As promised, joining us is Dr. Larry Fedorwar. Dr. Larry, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I know I didn't send you an email, so we got a few things I do want to talk about. I think we'll cover CPAC a little bit, as well as teachers' unions and opening the schools back out, and maybe we'll get into the 2024 presidential election, as well as Syria and the recent bombing there. So there's kind of a setup for us. So the first thing I think that I want to get your take on, and I know you've been watching a little bit about it, is what's happening at CPAC this week that's going on. We're in day 2. The big, finale tomorrow is Donald Trump speaking. Everybody's dying to hear. And this is really going to be, other than him making a few phone calls when Rush Limbaugh passed away, and he talked, but he talked specifically about Rush and the Medal of Freedom that he gave him shortly before his death. He gave at the beginning of the year, right at the State of the Union. And he talked about that, and everybody kind of respected that, and nobody went outside of those boundaries. So other than that, since he's been deplatformed, we really haven't heard from Trump on that. So, I thought I'd get your take on that, but I'm getting a signal that we have a call, Doc. So let's go to the call first. No, we're good with that. We don't. All right. So let me go to that. I don't have my screen up today, so I'm following cues from my producer, Doc. So CPAC, you've been watching it this week?
I've been catching pieces of it and getting some also from the news.
Mm.
It's a rebirth and I think it's the cradle of the recovery from the trauma of the results of the last election. We need a recovery. I think that the entire 80 million of us that lost that election or saw it stolen, I guess, kind of felt very depressed about the whole thing. And to see the enthusiasm and the positive reaction of a lot of the speakers at the CPAP is really quite refreshing.
Yeah, I saw some of Ted Cruz and a few other speakers. I think it was that DeRoy guy. I was trying to remember what his role was.
Raleigh.
But the message we're getting, right, is to regroup and advance the principles of the America First platform, not to return to the old Republican platform, right? To just go with this America First. I mean, Trump really did turn the tables on the Democrat Party as far as it's the Republican president who made the connection to blue collar workers, and that was the largest wage growth in the Trump administration were those people without high school diplomas, for crying out loud.
Well, it changed the entire direction of the Republican Party.
Yeah,
and it was overdue.
Yes. And I think that's the message that I was seeing at CPAC is that that's what we need to do. That Biden is opening borders while schools are closed. This makes no sense, right? We have the surge happening at the border again. We're not opening the schools, but we're just opening the border doors to have all of these unaccompanied minors come in, and then we're putting them where? Back into the cages that were built in 2014, but they're not cages now, right? Now they're pens, but they play child music and they put up some rainbows and butterflies on the wall. This isn't even a joke, folks. I'm not even making this up. This is what Jen Psaki is telling us, and this is what the spin on this is, that those cages that were built by the Obama administration, but the media tried to tell us that it's
concentration
Trump, right, who put them into cages and that the concentration camps, same exact facilities, but because they have nice decorations and they're playing kiddie music, hey, this is all okay now. But
and the major issue is increasingly is going to be they have facilities for around 1,000, as I understand it, around 1,000 people, 1,000 of these kids, and they expect in the next month to have 15,000 of these kids. And what in the world are they going to do with them?
Yeah. Well, look, there's a bigger issue here than these kids coming in, then being now we're being told that we're going to take our tax dollars and take these children and fly them to relatives wherever they are in the country. And they're actually the Biden administration, anywhere in the U.S. And now the Biden administration wants to go back and find all the people who've been deported under the Trump administration and fly them back to the country. Okay, so we got that. Now, it's insanity. And the other issue is, and this is the part, Doctor, that I talk about, and it's frustrating because the media won't delve into this, and the Democrats don't want this as talking points. But the fact that these policies, they contribute to the child trafficking that's happening. In essence, the federal government is completing the final leg of trafficking. Because you've got these, and this is always the thing that, again, if you just step back for a moment and listen to what's being said, and you got to say, how can you not see the humor in this, the hypocrisy in your own words? In the same breath, they lecture us about ripping the children from the arms of their parents, and then they're talking about the unaccompanied minors. Well, which is it? Because they can't be the same thing. You can't be ripped from your parents' arms and being an unaccompanied minor at the same time, Doc. So it doesn't make any sense on that front. Then,
well, yeah, they are in a sense they are ripped though, but not by us. It's by the
cartels.
By the cartels.
Yeah. And this is the part that I'm talking about, that they don't. The underside, dirty belly of all this is the cartels are using these children as mules. They're getting them placed into the United States. You've got parents who are either giving their kids willingly over to these coyotes and these cartel people, or they're being forced to give their kids over, or they travel, right, 1,400 miles with their kids, but they get to the border, and what do? They send the kids over first because our own laws say that we can't deport the child. So they use the laws against us, but there is this entire dirty, awful trafficking of children and minors going on, and our cartels using the laws to their advantage. And when Biden sends the message out, it's okay to come. You're going to get in, and you're going to get reconnected with your parents, and you're going to get vaccines. Well, Americans go without vaccines. You're going to get vaccines. None of it makes any sense. Yet we can't open the schools, Doc. But Florida does. North Dakota does, right? So there are schools. Tons of charter schools and private schools are open. So what's wrong with the teachers' unions? Why won't they allow this to happen?
They're just too greedy. That's what's wrong with them.
Tell me about it, right? Now, there's $121 billion out of the $128 billion that were in the first package that has not been spent yet. So any discussion for additional money is ridiculous because you have $121 billion with a B sitting there. Now, my question is, not only do I think that we need to have a very stringent and in-depth forensic auditing because, and I talked about this last week's show, Doc, go Google, teacher union rep, embezzlement, et cetera, right? And you've got tons of stories from major cities, right? Chicago, you got a union member under house arrest with an anklet on, still conducting business, cars being bought, money and kickbacks happening. So it's this massive money laundering, right? They collect the union dues, they use them to support Democratic candidates, and then they get the legislature, these Democratic candidates that they backed, to send all this money back to the school systems. In essence, that's what's happening. I'd like to know where that $121 billion is sitting. I said this last week because because you know what, Doc? I would like the interest, not the principal. Leave the principal alone. Just give me the interest on $121 billion. You could live on that for generations.
Big money anyway.
Yeah, it's big money. So they're greedy, and why there isn't the science? Didn't they tell us to follow the science, right? Weren't we lectured about this? Wasn't the Biden administration, the Biden campaign said, I'm going to follow the science? Well, the science supports opening schools and getting children back in the seat.
Well, the whole thing is just so screwed up. Because a lot of the teachers are not the bad guys, really. But there are enough of them, obviously, to carry the overall policy. But many of those teachers are just not good people, and they're not really in favor of all this. But the leadership of the unions is just they're maniacal. I mean, they've lost their head. They want to get paid enormous amounts of money for doing nothing, and then they'll strike to maintain it. I mean, it's so ridiculous, as you said earlier. It's you really almost the point of you'd laugh at it, really, if it wasn't so serious. I mean, it's just crazy, absolutely crazy. And there's a lot of intelligent people that are on the other side, and you just, what in the world are they thinking about? It's horrific, really.
Well, we have that school board in Northern California who, well, kind of, I don't think it was the Zoom platform. It's irrelevant what platform it was, but it was open. So people were able to watch it and record it. And they thought they were in a closed meeting. And you got a real glimpse into the attitude of what some of these teachers. So they're not all wonderful. I mean, granted, most teachers are there for the right reason and they're there for the kids. But as a teacher, as a teachers union official said once, it's the teachers who pay the dues, not the children. So their fiduciary is with the teachers, not your child. Okay,
no question about that.
So they get caught on this open video meeting, talking about the parents. They just want to get their babysitters back, which that is the one that really bothered me, Dr. Larry, because if you're the teacher that just used the word babysitter, no one else. You view yourself as you're a very expensive babysitter, Ben. You're one of the highest paid babysitters in the history of babysitting because you're getting a good salary, great benefits, and a pension plan. That's not a bad deal. And if you think of yourself as a babysitter, I think it's time for you to move on. And we need the right kind of teacher in there. They talked about coming after me, I'm coming after you type of thing. It was not a good look for the teachers.
Well, I think that what's beneath the surface is that the teachers' unions are desperate to assert the fact their power over the public school system because they're afraid of school choice. And they just they're taking this as the opportunity to flex their muscles and just show everybody, including their own membership, that they are in charge. And by God, they're not going to have any usurpers in the form of school choice and private and non-public, non-union and non-public education. I think it's a power struggle fundamentally. I think that this is the reason that they're holding out. The leadership is holding out.
I hear what you're saying, but I'm looking at this, Doc, and I'm saying, not going back to the classroom, you're actually demonstrating to the world that there is school choice out there because people are making those choices, and that the students that go to your public school that is closed, not the ones in Florida and so forth, they're damaged. They are an academic year behind, and that will be a ripple effect through their entire academic career. Plus, we have the mental issues that are going on. We got high suicide contemplation and drug abuse and withdrawing, and they're not getting the social skills that they need. So you're damaging. You're actually consciously choosing to damage these children and their children in the academic career. Then we've got it being very clearly illustrated to us that these private schools and charter schools are doing well. So to me, it's backfiring because it's showing that school choice is a wonderful thing and that they are petty and self-centered.
Yeah, they overplayed their hand.
There you go. They overplayed the hand. Now, West Virginia, I had talked about this in another show I do, that they came up with the idea that they were going to give tax credit. And it was, I want to say $6,400 to $4,400. I think it was $4,400 or $4,600. There it is. West Virginia decided to give a voucher for $4,600 because they couldn't get their schools opened and come up with something. So parents can take that voucher and go to a charter school or private school. Now, out of the 17 private schools in West Virginia, 16 of them are Christian. And the issue that this was up in the other show, Doc, I was doing was about is because the Title IX stuff didn't carry through. In other words, in West Virginia, it's a Republican governor, and 76 out of 100 state reps are Republican, and 24 out of 35 senators are Republican. But they said that the voucher can go wherever you want to put it, And it doesn't matter what their policies are. In other words, the Catholic schools and the religious schools that are private, it doesn't matter if they discriminate on race or gender or the whole LGBTQ group, and that became the issue. Is, well, wait a minute. So taxpayer dollars can be put to these private Catholic schools. 16 out of 17 of them are Catholic schools or Christian type schools, and it doesn't matter if they have a problem on race or they treat people differently because of gender or sexuality. So that was the issue that was being fought there, because under Title IX that wouldn't go, right? You can't discriminate. But the point is, there's this voucher that they gave out, and of course all that's doing is every time that happens, well, that money's got to come out of the school budget, Doc, and it's demonstrating to us that school choice is the way to go, because the parents have more and more control. And I think the other thing that happened, do you remember when we started all of this remote learning? Parents could see it. And what did some school systems do? They put out a policy and said, no, a parent can't be in the room. They can't watch our lessons. Why?
Yeah.
If I was a parent who wasn't watching it, and the moment I heard that, guess what I'd be doing? I'd be watching the lesson, because
your kids would be going to different school.
Oh, they'd be going, but the first thing I would do is sit in on that class. What are you teaching? And I thought this was a great opportunity for parents to be able to literally see what's being fed to their children on a daily basis. And I'm sure it got watered down or changed around a little bit. But, I mean, why do you put a policy out to parents? You're not allowed to watch the lessons. Like, not even, they said you can't, not even sit in the corner in a chair and listen to the lesson to the student, your child. As we come into your home and we put this into your child's head, you're not allowed to monitor that.
Well, they're clearly, they feel like they're fighting for their lives, and everything they do, frankly, is wrong. I mean, they're overplaying their hand. They're getting the public against them, and the next thing that's going to happen, I think, is that you're going to have a lot of activist parents that are going to start voting for local school boards.
Yeah,
they're going to be anti-union, and these people are, they just overplayed their hand.
They did.
I think it's the death knell. And frankly, I've been waiting for this for 40 years. I can remember back in the day when the idea of school choice was considered so radical and so unrealistic that nobody paid any attention to it except a few idealists.
And folks, we're talking to Dr. Larry Fedewa, and you were a president of a college at one point, right? I mean, so education is in your wheelhouse, and you've been around a long time. That's no slight on your age there, but longer than me, and in a very distinguished career. And so when we tell you, when you're speaking about education, from whence you speak. And, this question of school choice has always been poo-pooed on by the education establishment as well as the left. They certainly do not want money going anywhere but back into the teachers, and they certainly want the control. And look what they've done to the curriculum. And it starts, and you made a good point about the school boards, right? And this is the thing, and I've lectured about this and I've talked about this, is the difference between the conservatives and the liberal, the Republican and the Democrats, and how the politics work, is Democrats very much have farm teams, and they think in long term, and they pull from the zoning board and the school board and the building, all of those committees and stuff are usually very Democratic, because that's where they start. And then, they figure it out. And, okay, that's that rep seat. Well, who's going to take it? And they have those conversations. Well, it's so-and-so's turn. You sit it out. You'll run the next time. Here in Massachusetts anyway, Doc, because for the most part, if you have a D next to your name, you're close to there, right? And that's just the way it is in this state. But they have the farm team. But so what I'm trying to say here, folks, is that the people who end up as your state rep, state senator, and then we pull, a lot of our Congress people have been state reps or senators first. They started on the school board. They started on these local offices. And if they're all very progressive and left there, that's what's going to rise up through the system. And that's how we get so heavily Democrat in states like Massachusetts. So Republican Party has to get more of a farm team, more people in local offices, more people on the school boards, if you want to have that common sense conservative outlook going forward. And that's just the way to do it. And that's happening across the country, Doc, right?
Well, I think it's going to really have an impact as time goes on. There's Americans. I think, let me just say, in a generic sense, that I think one of the major advantages that we have as conservative people in America is the American culture. You can push an American just so far, and then he's going to say, "Wait a minute, what in the devil are you trying to do to me?" And I'm gonna fight this back. And you just can't push people around too much.
Right.
And this is what is happening with this administration and with the far left particularly. They really want to push everybody around and make people do things that they don't even want to do. And you can't do that to Americans. It's in our DNA. We want the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and that is built into us. And I think ultimately that is what is going to save us, because we've got people right now that are trying to change the entire story of America. America is a bad place, and it needs everything needs to be torn down and rebuilt.
Yeah.
And if you're a white male, you're a bad guy, and you're supposed to be guilty. And teaching in the schools, I mean, you just can't push us too far.
Well, Doc,
I think this CPAP is a good example.
Yeah. We're going to have to take a break in a minute, but that brings up good things about radical race theory and the 1619 project being moved into curriculums, and we can touch on that as well as Trump's appearance tomorrow, the 2024 election, and maybe even Syria. All that ahead, folks, as we continue with Dr. Larry Fedorwar on the Joe Mangiacotti Show. But at halfway through this hour, we're going to take a quick break. We got Handle and Change, and we'll be back on the other side with Dr. Larry Fedorwar. 508-871-7000. Lines open and available. I'm Joe Mangiacotti. Good morning and welcome to Handling Change from the Cantiani Insurance Studios. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and Paul Stankus of the Cantiani Insurance Agency joins us this week. Protecting your home, auto, business, and possessions can be challenging, and Paul can help us with those tools. Say good morning, Paul.
Morning, Joe. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So you are Vice President of Agency Operations at the Cantiani Insurance Group, and I'm glad that you were able to take some time out and join us here for Handling Change. And we're pretty much settled into winter. We've had our first big snow dump, and it looks like there's some more to come, and that presents a whole new series of issues and problems that we don't have, in the summertime. Let's
talk about that a little bit. Some advice for our listeners for these winter months.
One of the things we've learned over the course of time, especially from the year 2011, the ice storms that we had this year were a big eye-opener for the agency, not just for damages due to ice dams, but also loss of power as well as food spoilage are some of the concerns that customers have when, they're thinking about the winter months.
Well, that's true too, right? Because you lose electricity for any given length of time, and you're going to have a lot of spoilage. As far as some of the practical things that you can do when we have a snowstorm, because these roofs, they're slanted. We're in New England, we're used to it, but they're not all designed to take that heavy amount of snow. What are some of the things people should do there?
It's important to keep up with the removal of snow, whether you have a roof rake and can get the snow off your roof, or whether you need to get up there when it's safe if you're able to, or hire a professional to get the snow off your roof. That's going to help with any damage that might occur up there, but not just the roof. You also want to look out for your decks and other areas where snow can build up and potentially cause a collapse. An ice dam is an accumulation of ice at the lower edge of a sloped roof, usually at the gutter. When interior heat melts the snow on the roof, water will run down and refreeze at the roof's edge, where temperatures are much cooler. Eventually, the ice builds up and blocks water from draining off the roof. This, in turn, forces the water under the roof covering and into your attic or down the inside of walls in your house. You can normally see it in the form of large icicles that may dangle somewhere around the gutter or even towards the downspouts of the gutter as well.
What are some other tips or advice that we should give people when it comes to winter months?
There's a few different ideas and options that you have. One idea is to keep the attic well ventilated. The colder the attic, the less melting and refreezing on the roof. Another idea is to minimize the amount of heat rising through the attic from within the house. By doing this, you can keep the attic floor well insulated to make sure that doesn't happen.
Well, that's good advice for the roof and keeping your attic well ventilated. But, New England, we're very used to pipes freezing and damages there. Let's talk about that for a moment.
Freezing pipes can cause a vast amount of damage in any home, especially if you're not at home and the pipe breaks during that time. Water can continuously run through the house, and if you're not home, it can cause a lot of damage.
I have come across some nightmare stories about that, Paul. People have gone away for days. Pipe has burst. It's been flooding their homes for days before they get home, and then it refreezes.
If your pipes aren't currently insulated, fitting exposed pipes with insulation sleeves or wrapping them to slow the heat transfer can be very helpful. Sealing cracks and holes in outside walls and foundations near water pipes and making sure that they're caulked will also avoid future damage. Another big one is keeping your cabinet doors open during the cold will allow heat in the house to circulate around the pipes, particularly in the kitchen or bathroom where you have these areas with pipes running through the home.
All right, fantastic. Those are some great tips and great advice.
Additionally, if you do have a security system in the home, check with your security system provider to see if they offer anything as far as keeping track of your temperature in the home. Some of these companies will have options where they will be able to monitor the temperature of your home, so if it dips down to freezing, you'll be notified.
Oh, that's fantastic. So it kind of keeps an eye on the situation even if you're in Cancun.
Absolutely.
All right, that's fantastic. Paul, thanks for stopping by Handling Change.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
And thank you for joining us for Handling Change from the Cantiani Insurance Studios. Join us each week at 7:30 as we give you the tools to handle the changes in your life. Visit us at handlechange.info and follow us at Talking Change for You. You can find Cantiani Insurance online at cantianiagency.com or give them a call at 508-791-2088. For Paul, I'm Joe Mangiacotti.
To join the conversation, call 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Now, here's your host, Joe Mangiacotti.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the second hour, the final segment of the Joe Mangiacotti Show, Saturday edition. Of course, back tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Our text line, 617-297-8388. 617-297-8388. Some texts that came in. Sadly, unions have not driven quality but have driven oppression. Many of our occupations are heavily burdened by requiring very expensive piles of paper, aka degrees, instead of focusing on quality and skills. They have made colleges rich and burdened society with massive college debt. Absolutely. All right, this concept of having to have this piece of parchment to do anything, we've conditioned it, and now they want to, the Nancy Pelosi's and AOC's of the world tell us, oh, by the way, you who either
couldn't afford to go to school, so you didn't, or didn't want to take on the debt, or went to trade school, took over the family business, or what have you, you need to pay for somebody else's decision to go to college. I think it's absolutely asinine, just as a side note. Our guest right now, as he joins us once a month, is Dr. Larry Fedawar. You can find him at drlarryonline.com. And, Doc, just bring everybody up. You suspended the regular column, but you're still joining once a week on blog radio.
Yeah, we have the Resistance Hour.
Yes, the Resistance. That's right. Yeah,
it's at 7 o'clock on the Bachelor News Radio Network, and my co-host is Tom Donaldson, and we generally talk about one or two major topics every week.
We should get Tom to actually join us one of these times.
Well, I'm sure he'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, we should have him come on. Tom Donaldson and Dr. Larry, Wednesday night, 7 o'clock, Bachelor Pad Radio Network, or News Network now it's called, right? News Network. Yeah.
All right.
So you can check it out there. Is the information on your drlarryonline.com? Because that link is on my social media, but if we need to, I can put up another one if we get you to that. But people know they can Google that and find you on Wednesday nights. Good stuff. I don't think I haven't been on. I think I'm still blackballed on there, right? So I can't join you. But that's a whole nother story. 508-871-7000. I do want to continue a little bit with this because we left at the 1619 Project in the radical race theory. But I think we have a call who wants to join us. So Joe from Worcester, is that who we're going to deal with on this, Russ? Russ is taking a call, so I don't think he's listening to me right now. So we'll take the call when he has a chance to pull this together. But Doc, Russ, do we have a call? Joe?
Oh, sorry about that, Joe.
Yeah.
We got Joe from Worcester.
All right, we'll go to Joe from Worcester because I think he wants to talk about school choice, and that's what we were talking about before the break, Joe. So it's very, very apropos here. Good morning. You're on with Dr. Larry and myself. What's your feeling?
Good morning, gentlemen. I have worked in non-traditional public schools, charter schools, as well as public schools. Currently work in a public school where during the homeroom every morning the recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance occurs. But we have school choice in almost every community in the state since the passage of the Ed Reform Act. There are non-traditional charter schools like Abby Kelly Foster Charter School in Worcester and numerous others, but identifying all of them. There is school choice since the passage of the Ed Reform Act, and parents do have the choice of, in certain districts, of making the choice of not sending their children to a traditional public school. For instance,
right.
In Worcester, there's at least 2 charter schools, and in Lowell, there's numerous charter schools.
So, Joe, let me ask you this. Do you think that the not getting back, the regular school systems not being back in full swing here with butts back in the seats and teachers in the classroom, has that helped or hurt them?
We have hybrid.
Yeah.
We have classes in school, and there's a cohort A, cohort B, and we have actual children in the building, and they're gradually phasing in based upon the direction of the Department of Ed, where there will be more phasing in without identifying the district. I realize there's still some districts where it's still primarily remote, but I assure you there are many students that are very needy, such as autistic and others, that are actually getting services in some school districts. And in my school district, half the student population is in 1 week, and then they go remote the following week. But we have a hybrid format in my school district, a traditional public school district. So the tax money is being used. I see it firsthand. It's being used very wisely, and the instruction is occurring. And during those weeks when there's a sizable proportion of the students in the school building, you also are teaching children remotely. So because of distancing issues, because of the necessity of wearing masks, because of all the other mandates that are not only in the schools, but even in corporate settings. I work in a corporate setting on the weekend. We're mandated to wear masks.
Well, Joe, wait a minute, Joe. See, this is my point. Is we can, be back in the schools, and we can do it safely with the masks and the distancing. It's all possible. But we have, but wait a minute. But we have school systems.
In some urban school districts, you have dated buildings dating back to the 1920s. They don't have the right ventilating systems in cities like Worcester, where some of the schools are not modern, like the school buildings in which I teach, that have been modernized with good ventilating systems and with the ability to, or in some school districts, you have buildings where they're beyond capacity practically.
Right. Okay, so, but Joe, listen for a second. Because, see, this is where I said that we have $121 billion out there, and why can't we put, and I know people got to know what I'm talking about, they're portable classrooms that can be set up on grounds, right? They're used for all kinds of things, but they're portable classrooms. I mean, they look like trailers and stuff, but we can extend the size of classrooms and extend the size of the physical limitations in some of the older buildings with temporary classrooms that can have the social distancing and the ventilation systems in there, as well as being sanitized. But my question also to you is, when we look at some of these school districts across the country who have put out demands that have nothing to really do with getting back to school, when they start talking about defunding the police and other things that don't directly matter to opening schools again, why are teachers' unions in California and in Minneapolis getting into the politics of it and preventing the schools from reopening when it has nothing to do with the safety and health of the student, but it has to do with their political agenda? I can't swallow that.
I teach in Massachusetts. I have no idea what the situation is in the large urban districts of like Los Angeles or San Francisco. So I have no first-hand experience. I'm not an administrator. I am not a school principal or assistant principal, but I can assure you there are some schools in Massachusetts where hybrid, and it's been going on since October 5th in the school district that I teach, where hybrid format has been in place, but then this is the issue. You have modern buildings in some school districts, and then in some urban districts like Springfield or Worcester, you have buildings dating back to the 1920s.
Yes.
So the ventilating system is dated, and there's not sufficient space for the number of for distancing, for lunches, for the classrooms, for all the other activities that need to be provided to the students. I mean, if you can't have the same standard in each district, if you have different buildings in terms of the structural ventilating system of each and every public school throughout the state. I agree
100% with that. My nieces and nephews are in the Natick school system, and they're doing the same thing. They're for I don't know what the breakdown is. I'm sorry, I don't know exactly whether it's a week on, week off day, whatever. But yes, sometimes my great nieces and nephews are in physically at the school, and then other times they're doing the remote at home on the computer type thing. That's what Natick's doing. And that's great because at least it's moving forward. But I really think that we've got to get it back to the traditional school year where the other parts, right, of that, you're a teacher, Joe, right? How important is that social interaction and that structure for their kids, right? First, that's where they're learning, their first social skills and making friends and dealing with dividing their time up, using it correctly. And I just, when we look at the big picture and the bad things have increased, the depression among students, the drug use, and then I'm concerned about those kids that depended on the school, well, even just the lunch systems, and even some schools the breakfast, Joe. They might not get those meals at home. Right? There's so much more going on in affecting our children from not having a normal school day than I think people, on the surface see in the first look.
Let's face the grim reality. You can't compare certain districts in terms of like Wellesley to Worcester. Even when you have a comparative analysis like MCAS was, they compare schools with comparable demographics when they do comparisons of certain school districts like Lowell to Worcester.
Yeah.
You're certainly not going to compare Worcester to suburban in Holden or Paxton, where the demographics are markedly different. Or you're not going to compare a district where you have modern school buildings, and then you go into a district like Springfield, where I taught for 2 years, where you have dated buildings, some of them dating back to the early 1900s for the elementary schools, or even in Worcester. Drive through the city, look at the school buildings in terms of the dated structures that are there, and you can't have a cookie cutter, one size fits all means to address the situation in terms of the pandemic that's occurring. You have some aged people like myself that have survived cancer. I'll be going for my first inoculation on upcoming fairly soon, and you have people in fear that are aged people in their 60s in fear, not knowing, not only in the school but even outside the school, as to whether or not, God forbid, you get something that compromises an already compromised immune system, may not survive the infection. Thank God, but has not occurred to me.
Absolutely. Let me. I think that we had lost Dr. Larry for a moment. Do we have him back, Russ? All right, let's bring Dr. Larry into the conversation. So, Dr. Larry, you there?
Yeah, and I think that one of the basic issues regarding physical plant is the fact that the school districts have not invested sufficiently in school plant, and a lot of times they put it to a vote and it's rejected, and this has been happening for many years, and now they're expecting the federal government to come in and take over the upkeep and modernization of the physical plant, which is really the responsibility of the local electorate. And I personally am not in favor of having the federal government have such a large role in the education of our children. I think it's the idea of a local elected school board that supposedly runs our schools I'm very much in favor of that. The problem is that we have not had an effective school boards that have been able to actually convince the other voters that they should maintain the modern facilities and equipment, and asking the federal government to come in and solve all those problems, I think, is the wrong approach. I think we have to say you ought to have the kind of school system that you are willing to support, and if you're not willing to support a good one, then you have to take the consequences.
Right. Joe, are you still with us? No, we don't have to. Okay. So, yeah, I agree, right? And we do have, here in New England, Dr. Larry, we're older than the rest of the country. And I mean that in the sense of our infrastructures, right? Our subway was built in the late 1800s, and we have family homes that have been passed down, literally built in 1700s. I grew up down the street from a house that was built in 1790. It has the little secret room behind the fireplace for the Underground Railroad. This is New England. You go to California and something gets to be 30, 40 years old, they tear it down and they put something new up. So, in this area, Joe made a great point. We have inherently problematic with the actual physical schools. They're old. They have asbestos. They don't have the ventilation system. And a lot of times they didn't have the electrical systems that could keep up with the modern day computers and electronics. So we've had that. And that's why, we see these massive bills and propositions and stuff in cities and towns for $100 million in new schools. Massive price tags.
That's not the fault of the federal government.
No, not at all.
Why should taxpayers in Michigan pay the freight for Massachusetts schools?
Should not.
I agree.
They should not.
You gotta get active school board candidates that are willing to and able to make the case that they're not doing right by their own children.
And see, this goes back, and this ties in, folks. And I'm going to take this opportunity to point out how the whole immigration issue fits into this. The natural process of population expansion, we can deal with this stuff. When you see your community is growing and more houses are being built and you can see young families having children, you've got a projection of increase in school attendance. But when we have influx of, for 20 plus years, even longer than that, right, we've been told 11 million. 11 million, that's the number. I'm sorry, that number is antiquated. It's so out of the ballpark. But when you have a bunch of school-age children coming into cities and towns, and it's not organically grown, that you can project that coming, this is the problem that illegal immigration, it does put a stressor on everything from the school systems in larger classrooms that weren't predictable to even the sewage and water being increased. When a town or municipality, right, Doc, they have to grow organically with projections. I can remember those conversations years ago. In Natick, when you need the new high school. Well, how many new developments have been built in condos, right? And when Natick Villages and the Greens went in, and we knew that we had a finite number of years before that wave of newborns were going to reach kindergarten, in junior high, in high school, and the fluctuation of the class sizes. Well, that's up to the town to figure out how to handle that and to build or expand the current schools to accommodate that. But that is a local issue. And this is one of the things I'm talking about, Dr. Larry, is that the federal government seems like over the last several years, decades, that they've just been getting more involved with telling states how to run their states and how we should run our lives, when it's not the federal government's job to tell us how to run our lives or even how to run our businesses, and it certainly isn't the federal government's to tell states how to operate. It's supposed to be the other way around, isn't it?
It certainly is. And one of the reasons, of course, is that the people that are actively trying to assert something, whether it's racial or educational or even commercial, they give up on trying to get the local government, the local people to support their position, and they find out it's easier to go to the federal government and bury their requirements into the massive appropriations that the Congress has. And of course the congressmen and senators have been very willing to try to accommodate that. So I mean, we've got our system is kind of running backwards, and it's a hard saying to say that we should not support the local school district through the federal government, especially if you're running for Congress.
Right. Absolutely. Hey, Dr. Larry, I think we have another phone call. Russ, can we bring that call in? Do we have a name and where they're calling from?
It's Tyler from Westfield.
Okay, great. Tyler, welcome to the show. You're on with Dr. Larry Fedor and myself. Good morning, Tyler.
Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Dr. Larry. Larry, are you Arabic?
Did we lose Dr. Larry? We did.
Oh, Joe. That's okay.
Yeah,
Joe, he'll be back.
Yeah, he'll be back. I'll ask him about that because you're asking because of the Fedor name.
Yes, sir, but I want to talk briefly about Syria. Goldman said last week, give it no time, we'll be back at war. Bingo, not even a week later.
Yep.
Joe, I got to share something real quick. This is 100% real. It's 12 years ago, so I can talk about it. It gave me a direct line to the White House. The information was accurate. I went to Beirut. I stayed in a resort named Seward in Zouk, Masba, 5 minutes from downtown Beirut. I went downtown Beirut. I'm cruising around talking to the different groups. I discovered this. They were a group of angry radicals. They were swearing. I didn't understand all of it. Ended in Wastefield, Mass. Came back home to Westfield and discovered the Exxon Tiger Mark gas, the air compressor engineering 500-gallon tanks, and the ag fertilizer had been chosen to create an incident at our town common opening where there were 1,700 people celebrating a concert. They said to sacrifice the city as a political altar to revamp the war. Then myself and some choice Westfield cops pulled up with a dump truck, scared the living crap out of them, and they sang on the cell in Pennsylvania. They went to prison. So I want to ask the doctor, we've spent $7 trillion blowing up and rebuilding overseas to pay tribute to ExxonMobil to get $70 a barrel. It's already started in Syria. Everyone over there knows the foreign thumbprint is real. Obama wasn't having it. Trump wasn't having it. Are we headed back into that cycle of war again based upon that pattern of the past?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Producer was talking to me here. We're trying to get Dr. Larry back, but we're against the clock, so I don't think it's going to happen anyway. But say again the last.
What do you think?
Yeah.
What do you think, Joe?
Say again what you said about the what was it, 7 million or billion for the rebuild?
$7 trillion to blow up and rebuild the Middle East to get oil at $70 a barrel.
Yeah.
Now it's bombing in Syria. Obama wasn't having it. Trump wasn't having it. Are we going back to war to create this mess again?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. So the question is, okay, why did we do this? Was it because I got to tell you something? What did they do, Tyler? They bombed and they attacked American citizens and soldiers because they needed to prod this guy, right? It's a different sheriff in town, and they got to know. Do you think that would have happened if Trump was reelected? I don't think so at all. Because
did that even happen, or is that just a cover story to start the ball rolling?
Well, you got to wonder, right? And this is why at the beginning of the show I said, when he's being asked about this and he's reading off the little cards in this, does he really understand who made the call? I'm sorry. Right. I'm not convinced and 100% sure that President Joe Biden was coherent of the whole situation and made that call. Somebody did it. Who actually made that call and he went along with it? And for what reason was it? Now, I don't think it would have happened with Donald Trump. See, one of the biggest assets that we had with Donald Trump as a country, that is his unpredictability, which was something Ronald Reagan had, and he demonstrated it when he fired all of the air traffic controllers.
And they hated him for it.
Yeah, and so I think we have Dr. Larry on for a quick second, so can we bring them both on, Russ, at the same time? No? All right. Dr. Larry, you there?
I'm back.
All right.
Yeah,
sorry about
I'm
that.
back.
We're having, I guess, just a problem, the two on there. But Tyler had a good point to make about the $7 trillion blowing up the Middle East and then rebuilding it for $70 a barrel oil. And then the problem, and he also had a question about what type of name is Fedor, by the way. So our listeners are curious as to what ethnicity is your background.
Well, we're actually it's a German pronunciation of an Italian name.
Well, we're against the clock.
Anglicized.
All right, Dr. Larry, I can't control the time, man. So we're out of time. Thank you so much. We'll be back next month, folks. I'll be back tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. on the Joe Mangiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN.
WACE Chicopee and WCRN Worcester. 8 o'clock.
You're tuned in to an encore presentation of the Wisconsin Vegetable Gardener Radio Show. The phone line and email are still